Welcome back to Emotions and Potions.
A love/hate letter too, with your lovely host Ashtin
and Alex.
And this week we are doing a listener request.
Yes, this one is a recommendation from Meredith.
We're super excited. Alex, what book are we reading?
Are reading The Takeover by TL Swan.
And we were so hyped. We were so excited that someone actually reached out and was like, we listen, and this is a book that I'm curious what you guys think.
And so we had to do it.
Yeah, so The Takeover, TL Swan. It's another wonderful romance.
But this time we're going into, like, millionaire romance.
Yeah. Okay, Alex, so obviously before we kind of dive into The Takeover, we want our listeners to know some of the things that are found in this book.
So trigger warnings, we do have death of a spouse that happens in the past, off page, but it does get brought up a lot. A single mom. And then some tropes, we have enemies to lovers, friends with benefits, office, workplace romance, and then, you know, your millionaire romance. So pretty tame.
Yeah, compared to what we've been reading for the pod, a lot more tame. I like that word. Yes. But
a little gentler.
Gentler, but still very smutty.
Yes. Still very spicy.
Smutty.
So then let's kick it off with a synopsis.
In best-selling author TL Swan's second hot installment to the Miles High Club series, he's sexy, rich, and her mortal enemy. Hate never felt so good. I first met Tristan Miles at a meeting where he was trying to take over my late husband's company. He was powerful, arrogant, and infuriatingly gorgeous, and I hate him with every cell in my body. In the shock of the century, he called me 3 days later and asked me on a date. I would rather die than date a man like him, though I do have to admit it was a good for the ego. Turning him down was the highlight of my year. 6 months later, he was the guest speaker at a conference I attended in France. Still arrogant and infuriating, but this time surprisingly charming and witty. When he looked at me, I got butterflies. But I can't go there. He's just a player in a hot suit, and I'm just a widow with 3 unruly sons. I just need this conference to be over. Because everybody knows that Tristan Miles always gets what he wants. And what he wants is me. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun. Can he want me with that synopsis?
That was a pretty good synopsis. I liked that. It didn't really go into a whole lot of plot, but it gives you kind of a breakdown of the timeline of kind of what's going to happen.
Yeah, and kind of their dynamic and how it's going to play out throughout this book.
Yeah. Yeah, as far as it goes, I was a fan of this synopsis.
Same. Definitely draws you in, makes you want to read it.
Without giving too much away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here for it. Okay. So now that we've kind of have the premise of what this book is going to entail, Alex, our lovely potion maker, what have you prepared today in our little champagne glasses?
So since, you know, we're going like billionaire romance here, and part of this book takes place in France, I'm doing a champagne drink. Very bubbly, very bougie, very sparkly. So I have dubbed this the Pêche Chargée.
Ooh, okay.
Which is loaded peach in French.
In French. Oh, that's good.
I really hope I pronounced that correctly. I tried.
No, that sounded good to me. A non-French speaker.
I did Google Translate it and like listen
to it a few times.
So I really did put in some effort in getting that right.
No, I like that because this drink is definitely very peachy.
Yes, it's some Peach Moonshine, some white cranberry peach juice, a little bit of rose gold luster dust.
Because remember, from Wicked Beauty, Alex bought her edible glitter, and now she's literally obsessed with it, so...
Probably for the next...
Until it's gone.
Foreseeable future, there's going to be luster dust in
but she used
potion.
She used a rose gold glitter dust.
And with the peach, it
complements it so well.
It looks so freaking fancy.
It looks so pretty. We'll have a picture of it because we both love glitter. We're going to post a picture on our Instagram, Emotions and Potions Pod, so you can understand that you need to purchase edible glitter.
Yes. And then I did float it with a French rosé brut.
Very nice. I liked the bottle of that. I liked the packaging. It had like a pink label. I'm so here for that. So. Okay, let's try this bad boy because I've been dying to. Ooh. Ooh, yeah.
It's very good.
It is good. It is very peachy, but Not mad at it.
Me either.
And that champagne is pretty good.
Step up your mimosa Bellini game.
Heck, I am all for any type of champagne drink. And as I was telling you, when you told me that this is the drink that we were making, I was like, Alex, this is why we are friends.
I understand your needs.
You get it! So once again, the potion, 10 out of 10. So good, Alex.
Thank you.
And we're recording this episode in the morning, so it's the perfect...
like mimosa-y, brunch, lunch kind of drink. Because our main characters have a lot of lunch. And they also drink a lot of wine. So it's another reason why I wanted to kind of go like...
You wanted to
sparkly
incorporate,
wine, brunchy, lunchy.
You did it again, Alex. 10 out of 10. So if you want that recipe in more detail, it's going to be on our Instagram, Emotions and Potions Pod. It'll be on the TikTok under the same handle. All right, Alex, we have our potions.
We have our warnings.
We have our warnings. We know what we're getting into.
Now time to spoil the fuck out of this book. So Ashtin, kick us off with that plot breakdown.
Claire Anderson's a widow and mother of 3. Her husband, Wade, has been dead for 5 years, and she has taken over his media company, Anderson Media, which is currently on the verge of failing. Tristan Miles, head of acquisitions for Miles Media, has a meeting with Claire, and he wants to buy her company. Claire isn't having it, and not only tells him no, but also tells him off. Tristan isn't used to being told no, and is not only attracted to Claire, but is also now intrigued by this woman, while she can't deny that Tristan is handsome, but wants nothing to do with him. So we're starting off strong with the classic enemies.
I want you, but I should hate
you. Yeah, like I hate everything that you represent, but you're fine, and I want to bang you. 6 months later, Marley, Claire's employee and best friend, with some help from Gabriel Ferrara, another media mogul and friend, convinces her to go to a self-help conference called Master Your Mind. When Claire checks into the hotel in France the conference is being held at, she starts to meet some of the other attendees. Ellie, an influencer, Angel, a porn actress, Nelson, a computer scientist, and a beautiful woman named Melissa. So the first morning of the conference, turns out the keynote speaker is none other than Tristan Miles. Claire is not happy about this and tries to walk out of the conference, but Tristan calls her out and gets her to sit back down. Makes like this huge scene.
Like calls her out on the stage. Claire Anderson, sit your ass down.
And she kind of has no other option. Everyone's looking at her now. It's like, oh God.
Because there's like a little over 200 people at this conference. So like they all turn and face her and it's like,
And like he's a big deal. And he's like calling her out. People are kind of like, whoa, what's going on here? Like,
but also, how do they already know each other?
So after the first part of this day is over, Claire skips out on the next activities and gets a massage instead, and Tristan is very upset by her absence. Later that evening, over drinks, Tristan confronts Claire about why she is so rude to him, and she informs him that he repulses her. Taken aback by how she is not falling all over him, he makes a call to his brother, Jameson, and informs him that he will be staying at the conference for the week instead of just the opening day. Because of Claire, the conference just now got interesting.
Smug bastard.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not leaving until I sort this thing out. There is a definite sexual attraction happening between Claire and Tristan. He is ready to make something happen with it, but Claire is still fighting it, and him like the plague. She is just still not here for it, even though she wants to low-key. Time for lots of sexual charged dialogue between these two, starting now, and it doesn't end.
Never ends.
Starting with, don't be afraid to call me Tristan, because one day very soon, I predict that you're going to be moaning. Just an example of the type of dialogue that you get between these two.
And that sort of thing just continues throughout this book. There were so many good, sometimes bad and cringy.
Where it's like, oh, that just makes me cringe.
Yeah.
But like, also, I don't hate it in romance novels as much as like if it was actually real life. But these two...
I went back and forth with loving it.
Did you? Where some points you're like, love that. Ooh, hate that. I feel that. So Claire's ready to turn in for the evening at 2 a.m. and she is struggling with having sexual urges now and is being disloyal to her dead husband. This becomes a very common theme with Claire and something that she really struggles through because since the death of her husband, she hasn't dated, she hasn't slept with anyone. Obviously, her husband dying that isn't like just getting a divorce. This was an unwilling separation.
Yeah. And you can't see him because he's dead.
Right. So, and this is something that plagues Claire the entire book. So Tristan takes his opportunity to escape from women from the conference who won't leave him alone because they want to have sex with him, with the excuse he is going to help Claire study. Very smooth. In the hotel elevator and while walking to Claire's room, Tristan starts coming onto Claire very strongly, trying to persuade her to sleep with him. Thankfully, Nelson, the computer scientist, interrupts this tension moment, and Claire bids Tristan a good night. So Tristan also isn't used to being turned down.
No.
So I think that that's also an appeal that Claire is like holding out.
He's enjoying this chase because normally he doesn't have to chase.
Right, because girls come to him and fall at his feet.
Yeah.
Because not only is he very wealthy, he's also very good looking.
Double whammy.
Double whammy. So the following day, after a difficult day of the conference emotionally for Claire, she is coming back to the hotel from a convenience store and runs into Tristan, who is being sympathetic and unusually kind to her. To which Claire calls him out on it and demands he treats her normally and not with it. Tristan grabs her face and kisses her, pushes her up against the wall, and says, "The last thing I feel when I look at you is pity." She gives into a moment of passionate kissing with Tristan, but breaks it up. They exchange some heated words, and Claire returns to her hotel room alone. The following day, the conference attendees go to a wine tasting tour at the 6th winery. Claire decides to join Tristan at the bar. They have banter about Claire ignoring their sexual connection, lots of dirty talk, and they agree to take things back to Claire's room. Chapter 5, and we get our first and definitely not last sex scene.
So it happens quickly.
Yes, very quick into this book. Sadly, Tristan only brought one condom to the party, and he finished quickly. They wound up falling asleep. So the next morning, they make it out of the hotel room unseen by other conference attendees and are having breakfast at a cafe with everyone. Some of Tristan's groupies try to get some one-on-one time with him, but he lets them know he still has a project to complete with Claire, who cheekily informs him she finished it herself.
Meaning she got herself off.
Later in the evening, while Claire is taking a bath in her room, Tristan slips in with a hotel key he stole from Claire, and he joins her in the tub. They exchange some bants about him spending the earlier evening with 3 women, and he lets Claire know he is only interested in her and bought condoms in bulk. And they proceed to fuck for hours. The following day at the conference, Tristan must leave for a meeting in Paris, and he leaves roses in her room and invites Claire to join him for a weekend in the city of love.
And the city of light.
As they have unfinished business. After speaking with her mother to confirm she can still watch her boys, Claire agrees to go to Paris. So Tristan sends the company private jet to take Claire to Paris, and they are staying at the Four Seasons in the Eiffel Tower suite. How freaking nice. Jesus.
And it's like that's where he always stays when he's in Paris.
Rich people. Why aren't I one? They have a dinner and night out dancing filled with cheeky, sexy bands, ending with more hours of long fucking. The next morning, they have their first fight about Claire not wanting to befriend Tristan on Instagram, allowing him to see her private life and children. She's very protective. After a day of sightseeing all the Paris sights, they have a romantic dinner followed by a night at the Moulin Rouge, and the next day it is time to return to New York. So during this time, we get hella sex scenes. This book was so heavily sexed out that we're going to do this a little bit different than how we have been, where we are going to go into a lot more detail on our like top 2 favorite sex scenes throughout the whole book.
Yeah, we're going to do like a whole smut talk.
Because if we go into detail on every sex scene,
we're going to be here for
ever.
Yeah.
So we're going to let you know when the sex is happening, but once we're done with the plot, we'll go back and kind of go into detail about
some of our favorites.
Yeah. So when Claire returns home, she finds things in chaos with her kids, and to top it off, a broken dishwasher. When she makes it back to her office the following day, she informs Marley the conference was just what she needed, but doesn't tell her about her naked times with Tristan. She heads to her office and realizes she has multiple missed calls from Tristan, and when she looks up, she finds him standing in her office doorway, demanding to take her to lunch. This causes another fight between the two as Claire tries to put a stop to things between them, thinking they were just a France fling. And Tristan stating that things aren't over until he says that they're over, and he leaves kind of in a huff and puff.
I didn't really like that line.
No, don't like that.
Mm.
Very controlling. Claire then must come clean about her hookup in France to Marley. During a girls' happy hour, Marley tries to convince Claire to be friends with benefits with Tristan. She's my type of girl. Marley's like, Claire?
You
honey?
Been celibate for 5 years. Go get that dick.
Yeah, Marley is like, please hook up with him because everyone else does. Like,
and also, I think Marley wants to live vicariously through Claire because Marley, if given the chance, would fuck Tristan.
But Claire is still fine with her one-time fling scenario that happened. She's kind of still very hesitant about this being anything. When Claire returns home, her oldest son, Fletcher, finds men's underwear in his mom's suitcase and loses his shit. And at that very moment, we get a knock on the door from none other than the man who the underwear belongs to, Tristan. Fletcher starts to attack Tristan and shoves the underwear in Tristan's mouth to attempt to choke him to death, though his ankle is definitely messed up after that altercation. So Fletcher is also about 18.
Yeah, 17.
17,
He's
18.
still in high school. He's a senior.
Tristan is early 30s. I think he's 34. And then Claire's 38.
Yeah.
So Claire is an older lead heroine in this book, which I kind of like.
Same. And I think even the podcast, the oldest heroine we've had up until now has been 32.
I think so. Yeah. So this is a woman who's she's established, she has kids, she has a career. You know, she's not looking really for a friends with benefits situation outside of this Paris when she was away from her reality.
Yeah, she has her own whole ass life.
Yes. So Fletcher does cause some damage to Tristan. He twists his ankle.
Yeah, because he bum rushes, tackles him, and is just swinging on him. And Tristan's like, "What the fuck is happening here?"
Yes. So after that, he slightly calms down. Tristan starts to be more silently and maliciously threatened by Claire's middle child, Harry, who I think is about 12 or 14.
Yes, within that age range.
I think 14, now that I think about it.
I think he's in middle school.
12 to 14. The youngest boy, Patrick, who I think is 8 to 10.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that age range, is kind of interested in him, and the only one who seems to be willing to give Tristan a chance. Needless to say, Tristan is overwhelmed by Claire's boys, the state of chaos that her home is, the pets, Muff Cat, and the dog Woofy. Tristan bolts out of there, messed up ankle and all, and when he gets home, he calls his brother Jameson to debrief him on the whole situation, which his brother finds hilarious.
Yeah, because Harry was being super maniacal and doing the little finger across the throat thing, I'm gonna kill you, and then mocked hanging himself.
Yeah, so Harry, I was getting very much psychological warfare.
Yes.
Low-key sociopathic, psychopathic tendencies, whereas Fletcher was just very much brute force.
Mm-hmm.
And just coming down. And then there's poor little Patrick who's wait, hi, friend?
Come play with me. Let's watch movies and
Because you also have to remember the dynamic of the kids with their dad. Their dad's been gone for 5 years, so Fletcher has probably the most memories and can still probably actively remember his dad. Harry, the middle child,
it's probably starting to get fuzzy. He probably has some memories, but
they're fading.
Yeah.
But he's trying to hold on to maybe those memories.
Yeah.
And then Patrick is so young, he probably doesn't even really remember Wade. So that dynamic plays in a role throughout this book, which I really liked that TL Swan kind of incorporated.
Yeah, and then Fletcher, the oldest one, has taken on this man of the house role.
He protects his mom.
Very protective over his mom. Harry is as well a little bit more bratty and kind of protecting himself.
Yeah.
A little bit more than he's protective of Claire. Can't blame any of the kids for these feats.
But I do like that TL Swan has this element in the books, because I feel like if you are bringing kids into a scenario like this, you have to also explore
how they would handle grief and their mom potentially moving on.
So the following day, Tristan is conducting interviews for his next intern, and one of the candidates is Fletcher. He verbally squares off with Tristan once again and leaves the interview. After the other interviews have concluded, Tristan finds himself thinking back to Fletcher, thinking about the loyalty to his family he showed, his passion and temper, and he actually ends up choosing him. Fletcher now has to break the news to his mother that he will be working at Miles Media. Claire does not take this well and initially forbids him from doing so, but after a weekend of arguments, she relents and lets him take the internship. During his first week at the internship, Tristan has been riding Fletcher hard, and when Claire calls to check in on him during lunch, Fletcher informs her that Tristan called him stupid. So Mama Bear mode engaged.
Big time.
And she comes charging into his office, ready to rip him a new asshole, and Tristan retorts back that he is teaching him work ethic as he is lazy and needs discipline. Fletcher enters the battle, which concludes with him maintaining his job and being dismissed to finish his reports, while Claire leaves, warning Tristan she will be watching him. We cut to Claire wrapping up a board meeting for her company. Numbers seem to be improving, and she meets Gabriel for dinner afterwards. She then looks to the other side of the bar, where a group of men are laughing, and one of them is Tristan Miles. Tristan and Gabriel are rivals in the media game, so they don't like each other. Claire is trying to keep Gabriel from spotting Tristan, and Tristan from spotting her. So a lot of balancing.
Yep.
During this dinner, Gabriel offers to help Claire's company by buying 50%, being a silent partner, and when she's back on her feet, she can buy him out and get back the full company. After this proposal, Tristan cuts into their dinner, while Gabriel is quick to state that it's a date. But Claire's kind of like, no,
it's a business meeting.
We're friends. The business meeting / date quickly gets awkward and interesting as Tristan and Claire keep exchanging filthy texts back and forth while she is trying to continue her dinner with Gabriel. The dinner ends with Tristan cornering Claire in a hallway and convincing her for one more night together at her hotel. They take things back to the hotel and bang it out, and afterwards, Tristan tries to convince Claire to keep seeing him, and she calls things off, and then Tristan gives her the cold shoulder. So this is something else that's very common, is like, they're super hot and heavy, then one of them kind of like
freaks out, and then it puts a stop to everything, and then it's this awkward moment, and they almost immediately regret the decision to call it off.
But like,
it's a weird.
I just think it's really annoying though, because specifically pertaining to Tristan, because he storms out so many times, and I'm like, how can you be a successful business person if your response to hearing something that you don't want to hear is to make a scene and then slam the door and storm off into the night?
Yeah, he has temper tantrums.
Like, this is the second time we've seen it. He did the first time he went to Claire's house, and he had the confrontation with the kids. He storms off.
But also, like, what were you expecting showing up to her house unannounced? It's like, you know she has kids. Yeah. It's not going to be this perfect.
Especially after you've already had the conversation and knowing where she is kind of at.
Yeah.
And you show up at her house in Long Island when you live in Manhattan on a Wednesday night?
Like, right after she had this international trip, somebody else, her mom, looking after her house. So, of course, things aren't going to be orderly or in whatever state you normally keep it in when you don't have control over the situation.
Right. But I just, like, kind of got annoyed at Tristan because I was like, that isn't how you handle things, especially with him being this very successful businessman.
Yeah, it's like, you want to be in this mature adult relationship. Fucking act like it.
Exactly. So obviously we get a really good smutty scene in that hotel room.
Yeah.
They definitely bang it out. Tristan decides to try and get over Claire by going out with his usual type, which is a hot blonde fashion editor. Marley happens to be at the same restaurant Tristan is at and informs Claire about this new development. While on the date, Tristan realizes she's not his type of woman anymore, and he still wants Claire. At Miles Media, It is Friday, and Fletcher has been working late, so he missed his train home. So Tristan gives him a ride, hoping to spend some time with Claire. But it turns out she has a date with Pilates Paul.
Dun dun dun.
So Fletcher is supposed to be babysitting his brothers while Claire has her date, and Tristan decides to stay and assist. While he is hanging with the boys, Fletcher gets a message from his school crush, and Tristan gives him some dating advice, and Fletcher leaves for his first date. So Tristan pretty much is like, go, I'll watch Patrick. Tristan and Patrick start to bond, and thankfully Harry, aka the Wizard, is away at a school camp for the evening. When Claire gets back from her date, she comes home to a Patrick fallen asleep on the couch with Tristan, who has drank her wine, and she is not happy about Fletcher leaving him to watch Patrick. Tristan winds up spending the night at Claire's, and after an uncomfortable few hours on the couch, he decided to go and stay in Harry's room. And when he wakes up, Harry is standing over him in a murderous fury, wanting to know what the fuck he is doing in his bed. As Tristan is making his way home, his car begins to give him trouble. Tristan goes to see Claire at work again to take her to lunch and convince her to a relationship of casual monogamy and meet for lunch at a private hotel suite. So he has finally
gotten a little bit to the next step.
He's kind of convincing Claire to take the next step.
Or at least, continue fucking.
Yes.
But yeah, exclusively.
Essentially, it's a friends with benefits, but it's monogamous. So they're only going to be sleeping with each other, but it's not a relationship in the sense of dating. This lunch date quickly becomes a naked one, following 2 more during the same week. As Claire leaves him from her shower, Tristan gets a call from his mechanic about his car, and it turns out someone poured a ton of sugar in his gas tank, and it turned out hair removal was put in his conditioner, and his hair is starting to fall out. And all of these things are done by the Wizard, aka Harry.
So Tristan calls his brother Jameson about the situation with Harry the Wizard before he kills the kid. As brothers do, Jameson makes fun of him for the predicament he's in and how he's basically whipped for Claire. Claire is on her way home, and she's feeling happy for once, and she's enjoying this new relationship with Tristan, and is proud of her son Fletcher for all the hard work he's been doing. When she gets home, Tristan shows up unannounced, again, for a movie night with Patrick, who gets his nickname of Tricky, which is really cute.
I do like how Tristan gives all the boys cute little nicknames.
Yeah, Fletcher is Fletch.
Harry's Wizard, and Patrick is Tricky.
Harry is also at home, and Tristan uses this time to make him nervous about what he did to his car, stating the police are now involved in the situation. At the end of the evening, Claire is getting ready to go to bed and is checking on the boys, and overhears a conversation between Fletcher and Tristan about how to use a condom. This really freaks Claire out, as one, she's isn't ready for her son to be considering having sex. Like, she's not ready to, think of that. And also, this is the type of, fatherly conversation that Fletcher should be having with Wade.
Who obviously is no longer here. You can't have that conversation.
So it's really getting to her. So Claire goes to her room where she begins to emotionally break down. She's feeling bad about starting to move on from her husband and wrestling with the fact that she's still also in love with Wade and has...
Yeah, I mean, that's just a really tough dynamic of, losing your spouse at a very young age. I think he died in a car crash.
Yeah.
So it was obviously something that was very sudden. It seemed like her and Wade had a really good relationship.
They were very much still in love with each other and enjoyed each other's company.
So, it is a very hard dynamic of losing the person that you, still want to be with to death. That's a hard thing to kind of...
But then she's also kind of realizing she does need to move on with her life. That Wade wouldn't want her to, still be suffering.
And be, alone and, sad and...
So I can sympathize and understand why she's struggling. Tristan sees Claire crying and tries to console her and find out what's wrong. But Claire shuts him down, stating she's just on her period and it's hormones, and kind of, shoos him away. So Tristan goes downstairs to sleep on the couch, and while Claire is up in her room, she's still having this internal struggle. So she goes and takes her wedding ring and puts it on because it's like a security blanket. And she falls asleep wearing her wedding ring. The next morning, Claire goes downstairs. Tristan sees the ring on her finger and freaks out.
Because also earlier in the book, he even like straight up tells her that he isn't sharing her with anyone.
He's realizing he's going to come second because of the kids. And then he's like, the pets also kind of outrank me right now. I don't need a dead spouse to outrank me. And he tells her he doesn't date married women and leaves.
Once again, storming out. And this is like, it's something that drives me crazy because I'm like, if you guys actually are adults,
have a conversation. What are your expectations?
Use your words.
Yeah, use your words. Because if Claire told him about the fact that she overheard the conversation he was having with her son and about how this is something his father should be having and the fact that it can't happen is what kind of sent her spiraling, I think he could sympathize and be like, oh, I understand.
Something triggered you. You just needed a moment of comfort. Mm-hmm. But like, and that's the thing too, is like Claire is very close-lipped when it comes to how she's feeling about coping with the first relationship since her husband died. And like, I think that Tristan, like, he probably is aware of it. Like, he also doesn't make it an effort to be like, maybe we should talk about this.
Yeah.
Like, let me know how you're feeling. It's like they don't. They just avoid. And it's like, this is a topic that is going to blow up if you don't get it under control.
Back at Miles Media, Tristan must deal with his hair situation.
Because remember, the wizard put hair removal in the conditioner. So his hair is falling out.
Yeah. It's not like, he's not bald, but it's like patchy and like thinning. And so he walks into the office and like the girls that work there and like his brother are just making fun of him because his hair was like his asset and like a trademark thing for him.
He had like a really good set of hair.
Yeah.
Like always really nice. And now it's visibly thinner. Like you can tell something is up.
This just sounds not right. So thankfully, Jameson's PA sets him up with a haircut. Fletcher finds Tristan and asks him if he knows what's wrong with his mother because she's been really sad for a couple days. And Tristan says she's probably just missing your dad. Cut to Claire at her office. She's upset because she realizes she's falling in love with Tristan and has just potentially ruined a good thing. So she calls him and begs for them to meet up at their lunch hotel, which Tristan agrees to kind of reluctantly. At the hotel, Claire reveals to Tristan her feelings and hesitations about them being together. So they finally start to talk about it a little bit, but it's still not
the extent of what it
should
be.
A super satisfying conversation. But she does reveal to him that like it's not just her heart on the line, it's also her kids' hearts too. It's like this is kind of a big package deal, and she can't have them be heartbroken again.
Right, it's not just her. She comes along with 3 other humans that she has to protect. Like, I can get that. I can understand it.
Tristan lets her know that he is serious and he's not interested in anybody else. And they decide to give an actual relationship a go. But they're going to test drive it for a long weekend first. So she's going to spend like a 3-day weekend with him in the city. And that means going to Tristan's New York penthouse apartment.
Let's see what this billionaire has to offer us in real estate, shall we?
A lot. His New York apartment is bigger than her whole home in Long Island.
Nice.
Claire gets let in by, like, Tristan's driver, and while Tristan's in a meeting, and when he comes home, he finds a naked Claire soaking in his tub, which leads to another sex scene. Cut to 2 hours later, they took their sex session to the bed, thankfully, though we did get a full written scene about them doing it in the tub. And they're now finished. They're about to go out and get some dinner, so, like, they quickly put on, like, very casual clothes. Like, Tristan's just, like, in some basketball shorts or, like, sweats, and, like, he gives Claire some of his clothes. So they're very disheveled, freshly fucked.
Love to see it.
And, you know, they hit the city to go find some takeout. When they get to the restaurant, they run into Tristan's ex-girlfriend, who still isn't over him and still has a relationship with Tristan's mother.
Love that.
So this bothers Claire a little bit, and she inquires why they didn't work out. And Tristan tells her, because she's not you.
Obviously, with romance novels, everything is going to be kind of exaggerated and not super realistic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, every time that I read one that has that kind of line where it's like, she wasn't you, or whatever, like, I low-key love it.
But if someone said that to me in real life, I'd be like,
you're a piece of shit. You're full of shit.
You're taking an easy way out to get me to, like, be like, oh, you're so sweet.
Yeah, but I'm like...
Answer the fucking question.
Right. So I'm like, swooning, but then I'm like, no, wait.
You're avoiding giving me real information here.
Right.
An insight. I would like substance.
Like, yeah, I know she's not me. We're different people. But, like, why did you break up?
The next evening, Tristan takes Claire out for a fancy New York dinner. And we start to learn more about Tristan and his relationship with his brothers, and we find out his insecurity, which is he's doing a job he's not necessarily proud of. This was a very good little date, a way for them to actually kind of bond and get past surface level stuff. And then we cut to Claire and Tristan going to an art auction with Tristan's brothers, Christopher and Elliot. Elliot is the art lover, and he's there to buy a painting from his favorite reclusive artist. Elliot winds up having a connection with a strange blonde who may or may not have a connection to the artist in some way. And he winds up winning the bid for the painting, but misses a chance with the girl.
So something that I'm just going to throw out here, but I just want to say it. I remember I came to your office because Alex and I work together. I talked about this specific thing being like, I think that is going to be that girl is going to be that brother's love interest. Because it just, like, set it up so, like, well.
Mm-hmm.
I then went and did some research to try to figure out who the love interests were with the other brothers, since this is a series, and all the other brothers do have a book. And it's not. I don't think that girl has any connection in the rest of the series.
You may have to read it and find out.
I know, but from what I can, like, I don't know. I haven't read them.
Would it make you mad if it wasn't?
Yes. If she isn't somehow involved with that brother, I would have a big problem. But
Meredith, let us know if you've read Elliot's book.
Yeah, who the hell is his love interest?
Now it's time for their weekend to come to an end, but they are both being in a relationship with each other. So they decide, we're going to keep this going. Tristan joins Claire and her boys for a dinner out, and Tristan uses this opportunity to declare that Claire needs a boyfriend, and how he should be the one to do it. So the other options are the mystery man from Paris, that the boys still don't 100% know that it was Tristan.
Or Pilates Paul.
After a funny but convincing argument, which winds up in a vote, Fletcher, Patrick, Tristan, and Claire vote yes to Tristan being the boyfriend. Harry votes for Pilates Paul.
I really liked that. Like, I liked how they kind of had this conversation as a group, because it does involve
the kids
as well. But I love Harry. I love that he's like, I'm just going to say Pilates Paul because I just can't condone my mom dating you.
Yeah. And he's like, I just know that the Pilates Paul thing will break up anyways, so
let's go that option.
Yeah. But, majority rules. So, Tristan gets to be the boyfriend. So they are now official to the kids. When they return to Claire's after dinner, Tristan is getting ready to leave, but Patrick freaks out, not wanting him to go because what if he gets hurt because of drunk drivers, which is how his father died. So Tristan agrees to stay the night because he can't stand seeing Patrick
freaking out
and heartbroken.
Yeah. And also, like, the age that Patrick is, like, I feel like that is my favorite age for kids. In that age where they're not totally helpless, but they do still need, like, heavy parental guidance.
And they still want it.
But they're like, but you can have conversations with them, and they are a human. Like,
yeah.
They're functioning, they can, whatever. And, like, Patrick just tore on my heartstrings throughout this whole book.
He was so cute.
So precious.
And Claire winds up telling Tristan that she loves him, especially after seeing the way he handled Tristan calming Patrick down. She's like, yep, hook, line, and sinker, I'm in love with this man.
There's no getting out of it now.
And they have a little cuddle on the couch. Tristan and Fletcher are walking around New York and come across a hobby shop where Fletcher sees a model rocket that Harry has been obsessing over. And Tristan decides to buy it for him to be able to try to connect and find some common ground with the wizard. Back at his office, his mother shows up for a visit and confronts Tristan with how his ex-girlfriend has informed her that he's seeing someone. And she's very skeptical of this relationship with Claire, even though she's yet to meet her. Then we cut to Claire's office, where her business is not doing so well and she's starting to regret not taking Gabriel's offer. When a package arrives for her, Tristan has sent her flowers with a note stating, "I'm a very happy man today. Hashtag to be loved by you."
That's cute. I'm a huge fan of flowers, so good job, Tristan.
Marley sees this note and freaks out, demanding to know what is going on. And Claire finally informs her bestie of her new relationship status and how she's meeting his family on Saturday at a black tie dinner. So Marley decides it's time for some shopping and to be styled by a stylist.
I like Marley. She knows what's up.
Yeah.
She's like, Claire, this is a big fucking deal.
We're gonna get it together.
We are gonna get you looking like $1 billion.
We're gonna get you waxed and ready. At Claire's house, Tristan and the boys start working on the rocket. And while the kids are distracted, Tristan goes to the house and has a little quickie session with Claire. Turns out the salesman sabotaged the rocket building instructions. But good news, Tristan and the kids have bonded, and Harry is actually starting to warm up to him. Time for Claire to get ready for the black tie dinner with the Miles family. A hairdresser is coming over to style Claire's hair, and Tristan is supposed to meet his brothers at a bar to watch a game. When the hairdresser arrives, however, he is a very attractive European man, and Tristan decides to stay to keep an eye on things. He does not want this attractive man alone with his woman. So he bails on his brother.
And literally just sits in the living room for hours by himself.
At the dinner, Claire starts to get overwhelmed meeting the Miles family and being grilled by their questions. And since they're all in the media industry, Tristan's dad knows Claire's ex-husband, and they kind of start talking about him. So it's just very overwhelming. Understandably so. But thankfully, Claire winds up hitting it off with Jameson's wife, Emily, who provides some tension relief for the evening, and the two of them start to become very friendly.
And I do know that Jameson and Emily are book 1 of this series. Mm-hmm. So their story comes prior to Claire and Tristan.
Two attractive men wind up joining the group, Sebastian Garcia and Spencer Jones, who apparently are in a different series of TL Swan. So it was kind of nice to have an introduction to these guys here.
Yeah, and Meredith actually, when she reached out to us about her recommendations, she gave us 2 options by TL Swan. She gave us the Takeover, which we ended up doing, and Mr. Garcia, which is Sebastian Garcia. And after reading this, I would be very into reading
Mr. Garcia. Yeah, I do want to read that. So after the dinner, it's time to hit the town and go clubbing. It's been a very fun and slightly wild evening, and it comes to an abrupt halt when Claire receives a phone call that Harry is missing. When Tristan and Claire arrive at her house shortly after receiving the call, Harrison returns muddy and rained on and has lost his bike.
He was gone for the whole night.
Mm-hmm.
They could not find him.
Yeah, because Claire got the phone call probably at 2, 3 a.m. They didn't make it back to Long Island for an hour.
And also, this is kind of something that has happened before. Harry is the troubled of the 3, I would say. He's the one that struggles the most. He's the one that is disruptive in class. He's the one that gets sent to the principal's office. He's very wild. Can't really be tamed. But him going missing for this amount of time is definitely worrisome. This is definitely something that they're oh my god.
So of course he's in big trouble and gets sent to his room. Tristan takes it upon himself to find Harry's bike, and when he locates it, he realizes that Harry was at his dad's grave. That's where he ran off to. He ran off to go spend time with his dad.
And I think that's 15 miles
mm-hmm.
away. It's about 15 miles, and he had his bike.
Yeah.
But
then it started storming, and that's how he lost his bike. So Tristan decides to go have a really sweet conversation with Harry about it. Hey, why didn't you tell your mom what you were actually up to? She would understand.
Yeah, because Tristan, does some, like, detective work. He is able to trace exactly where, like, I think because someone calls and says that they found a phone, or, like, he's calling the phone and someone answers the cell phone, and they're like, oh, well, we found it near this area. And, like, Tristan personally, like, goes out there to investigate and realizes that Harry was at the graveyard.
Yeah.
But, like, Tristan really took the initiative and then, like, also approaches Harry being like, I know where you were. Like, why don't you tell your mom? Like, she would understand.
Like, she'd still be mad that you snuck out, but, like...
There's a reason. Like, that's a pretty decent reason.
Yeah.
But then he's kind of like, she gets really sad.
And I don't want to upset her anymore.
Because he's like, why don't you ask her to take you? And he's like, well, every single time that we go, she's sad for days after. And all she does is cry. And it's like, he's at that age where he knows that he doesn't want to inflict that pain on his mom. But, like, he also wants to feel close to his dad. Like, it's kind of heartbreaking. Like, it's really sad.
So the next day, Tristan winds up picking Harry up from school and takes him to his dad's grave, where they talk, share Wade's favorite cigar, and Harry winds up introducing Tristan to his father. So it's almost like he's finally giving his seal of approval to Tristan at this point. And Claire is in her own car and witnesses this whole interaction.
Because she kind of follows them, right?
Yeah. I think she was probably going to go pick... Either she was going to go pick Harry up, or she was just having a moment of weakness where she probably needed to visit her husband's grave and talk, and then...
And they were there, yeah.
It's not really explained why she was there. It just, like, cuts and she's there.
Okay.
So that's my thought process.
Okay. I liked the scene with Harry and Tristan and Wade. It definitely, like, pulled on the heartstrings a little bit.
Oh, definitely. And it pulled on Claire's because she's fallen more in love with Tristan after this.
Yeah, and, like, it's funny because I think Claire, when it's her point of view, she is kind of like, why is he smoking a cigar? But then she's kind of like, well, Tristan, like, it was Wade's, like, Wade was a huge
cigar person.
Cigar smoker. And it was, like, something that she could see them doing, like, if he was still alive in the future. And, like, so she kind of, like, lets it slide. Like, it's just a really cute moment, though, between the two of them.
When Tristan goes back to his office, it turns out that Muffcat pissed in his overnight bag.
And he smells like pee.
And he winds up getting a visit from his mother. So if the day couldn't get any worse for him. And his mom wants him to visit the ex-girlfriend that broke him, Mary. And if he can visit her and tell his mother that he doesn't have feelings for Mary anymore, then she will give Tristan her blessing of being with Claire.
This is fucked.
It's really fucked, because she's like telling Tristan that he's a fixer, and the only reason why he's with Claire is because he sees Claire as a project and something to fix.
And that the reason it didn't work with Mary is because she didn't need fixing. So he kind of, like, didn't really think that it was worth it. And I think that he almost kind of has this light bulb moment where he's like, oh my gosh, maybe that is correct? Yeah. But, like, it's still really shitty on his mom's end.
Yeah.
Being like, go and see your ex, who you, like, never really got over and who never really got over you. And yes, and again,
this is another ex. This isn't the same ex they ran into.
Right.
Out. And we find out that, like, Tristan's mom is still friends with, like, all his exes, which I think is really shitty.
Yeah. Like, cut those...
I could understand maybe being friends with, like, one or...
Like, I could understand the Mary.
Yeah.
Because it seemed like they kind of dated for a while. They had a really good connection.
She was kind of a part of the family a little bit.
It just didn't work out.
Yeah.
But, like, the first ex that they run into, like, she kind of was just, like, a fling.
Yeah, and for his mom to still talk to her and apparently talk to all his exes, I don't like that.
Like, I could see the girls trying to stay in touch with the mom because they know it's kind of their in and, like, not wanting to let Tristan go.
But she should shut that down.
Right, the fact that she kind of, like, allows it?
Did not like that.
Girl.
Oh, and to top it off, she wants him to do this meet with Mary this day.
Like, now.
Like tonight.
I've already arranged it.
Yeah.
Go and meet her.
Mary's expecting your phone call.
Like, the fuck? Thanks, Mom.
Yeah. And so he has to cancel plans that he has with Claire to do this little mission for his mother. Fletcher overhears the conversation between Tristan and his mom. So Fletcher winds up informing Claire about what's going down.
And then also the text that he sent her being like, something came up or whatever.
He's very vague about why he's canceling.
And she's very suspicious because she hasn't seen anything like this from him before. So it almost makes him seem suspicious.
Yeah.
I mean, he is.
And then when Fletcher tells him what it is, Claire is aware of who Mary is, and she knows that Mary is like the big heartbreak
Like
ex.
the one who got away.
Mm-hmm.
Quotations, that type of thing.
So now she's starting to spiral a little bit.
Who can blame her? I would be spiraling so hard.
And so Claire, it's the middle of the night. She hasn't been able to sleep because she's just tossing and turning and worrying about this.
Feel that? Relatable.
And I kind of liked Claire in this moment because she's like, you know what? If Mary really is the one for him, great. Like, she will support it. But she also is like, but I love him. And this is
It would hurt.
It would hurt. She's like, but I understand why he would need to do this. Thankfully, Tristan returns to Claire. And not only did he just return home to Claire, he turned in his, like, sports car, like his Aston Martin, like...
Two-door, like, fast-ass sports car.
And comes back with a Range Rover, like a bigger SUV. He bought a new car for the family, and he reassures Claire that she's the one for him, not Mary.
Which, I mean, like, snaps to Tristan for, like, kind of... And, I don't know if this was actually his thought process. But, like, he went and saw his ex-girlfriend, realized that she was definitely not the one. And, like, he probably was even feeling more guilty, so he was like, let me trade in my sports car and really make this statement.
Like, that I'm gonna be the family man.
Right, that I am, like, all in, and then shows up, like, with a Range Rover. And honestly, I would rather have a man with a Range Rover than an Aston Martin anyway, so...
Same.
Come on over!
Good job, Tristan. So the next morning, Claire and Tristan have a talk with the boys that Tristan is moving in. And Harry presents his grade on a paper that him and Tristan were working on, which is a failing grade.
Like, big failing.
It was like a 30% or something. And Tristan goes into mad dad mode.
Bro, he goes berserk.
He is like, this is ridiculous. I helped you work on this. I read it myself afterwards. This does not deserve this kind of grade. We're going to find out what the fuck is going on. Because apparently Harry's teacher always gives him these sort of grades and remarks and is always sending him out of class.
Targeting him. Yeah.
So Tristan's going to get to the bottom of this. So him, Claire, and Harry go to the school, and Claire's just kind of like, I want nothing to do with this situation, but she's the actual parent, so she kind of has to go.
And I think how this chapter starts off is like, it's in Claire's point of view, and she says something about dating a powerful man and knowing when to take a step back and just let him do his thing. And it's like, this is that instance where it's like, she just needs to kind of take a back seat, and whatever he needs to say and do, she just gotta let it go. Like, let him do his thing.
So he does. He goes and demands a meeting with the principal, the vice principal, the teacher, and he's going to the board of education. He is going in takeover business mogul.
And also, like, I got the vibe that this was very much a public school in Long Island. Like, this is just, public school in Long Island, but he goes in guns a-blazing.
Oh, definitely. The result is the administration and the teacher get scathing reviews from Tristan, and he will be forwarding all this information to the Board of Education, and he winds up pulling the boys out of the school and enrolling them in a private school in the city. I think he overstepped a lot here. Was this kind of needing to be done? Yes, but this wasn't his place at this point in stuff.
I mean, I definitely think that it warrants an actual conversation.
Yeah.
Because these aren't his kids. They're his girlfriend's kids. Tristan shouldn't have just done all of this
without a conversation with the actual parent of the children.
Right. But like
his heart was in the right place. It was just overstepping.
But it like also low-key broke my heart because there's this conversation where I think Claire maybe like asks, or maybe it's Tristan, being like, well, Harry, aren't you going to, like, miss your friends? And he was like, well, I don't really have any. He's like, I sit alone all day, every day. He's like, all my friends are at the skate park and, like, with his sports, not actually at his school. He needs to be pulled out of the school, and, like, Tristan really did the right thing.
He just went about it in the wrong way.
Right, but you can't just, go 0 to 100 when it's not even your kids.
Yeah. And just not have, again, the conversations around these big, important topics just don't happen.
Right.
Then we get a time jump, and Tristan has been living with the Andersons for 7 months, and things seem to be going quite well. Until one day, Tristan surprises Claire and the boys with a tour of a large new house in the city that he wants to buy and move everyone into. And he also informs Claire that he wants to adopt kids when they get married.
Oh, also, Tristan has enrolled them into a very private, expensive, obviously
very elite school that they
in New York, you mentioned before. But, like, they also get chauffeured by a limousine. Like,
so they're living this very extravagant, like, Upper East Side life that Wade never wanted for the family.
They probably have money because they own their own business. I mean, I know that they're struggling now.
But when Wade was still alive, they were doing pretty well.
But he never wanted them to be those privileged, wealthy kids who had everything kind of handed. He wanted them to kind of live a normal...
Which is why they lived in Long Island and did the public school
and stuff like that. And then Tristan kind of swoops in and...
is giving them this hoity-toity echelon elite Upper East Side.
And he probably thinks he's doing everyone a favor. And, like, he probably doesn't see anything wrong with what he's giving.
Because, again, they haven't had this fucking conversation.
Right. They have conversations, but not about things that they should actually be talking about.
Like, these very important kind of deal breaker topics.
It's kind of like swept under the rug and not really talked about.
And so Claire is completely blindsided and, like, kind of slapped in the face with, like, all of this at once. And
she's been feeling this way for a while. Like, you know, her kids are already enrolled in this school that they didn't want. He's picking them up and taking them in a limo. Like,
and she's kind of a little okay with this because she's like, all right, at the end of the day, it is better for them because
they're getting good education.
They're getting good education, and what was happening at the public school wasn't good, so I can deal with this piece. But now you're having me completely abandon my life.
And then you say you also want to adopt. And, like, I think that Claire's focal point with the adoption is that, like, if her and Tristan weren't to work out, he would have legal rights of her kids because he adopted them. Mm-hmm. And, like, she is just not willing.
And she also feels like this is kind of the last piece of Wade being cut out. Which I could kind of understand her train of thought, but also at the same time, it's like, Wade is always going to be their biological father.
Yeah.
But he is not alive. It is okay if another person wants to step in and take on that fatherly role if he is the correct, if this is someone you actually marry. Because that was Tristan's thing. He's like, if I marry you, I want to adopt them and they be my kid. It's not like he's saying this with the father still being alive and, like, in their life.
Right.
He's dead.
Right. There is no seeing Wade. There is no Wade being in their lives in any way moving forward.
And you have to, up until this point, Tristan has been pretty respectful about Wade. Like, I mean, he freaking takes Harry to
see him.
Yeah. So it's like, clearly Tristan's not going to be like, there will be no mentions of Wade ever again. I am the father now. Like, he doesn't come across as that type of person. So Claire taking it as
that way? It's kind of like, Claire, you need to kind of
check yourself. But
again, I know you're in your feels.
But all of this could have been avoided with a conversation about it.
Like, how hard would it be for Tristan to be like, hey, I've been potentially, like, looking at other houses. How do you feel about that? Like, I understand that he wanted this to be a surprise and, like, he thought it was a good surprise. But it wasn't.
Yeah, but he didn't do enough thinking to be like, how is this going to come across to her? It's a lot at once. And so I can't blame her for being overwhelmed and feeling this way.
Freaking out.
In the moment. But, like, if everybody just kind of took a step back and took a breather and had a conversation, we wouldn't be in the situation that it's about to happen, which is Claire putting a stop and calling everything off. And she says some pretty hurtful things to Tristan. And they're both...
Yeah, she pretty much is like, you aren't their father, and you will never be their father. Like, they are my kids. They are not yours.
They are Wade's kids.
Like, you are overstepping your bounds. There's no way in hell I would ever sign off on that. I mean, she hits below the belt. Like, she hits him where she knows it's going to hurt. Because he's formed bonds with the kids.
Yeah.
Like, he does look at them as
his
and being like, I am their parental male figure now.
And he loves them.
Yeah, and in his mind, he's thinking like, I already am the parent.
He's just doing the next logical thing and wants to get things solidified. So if anything were to happen to them, to Claire, to him, they could be looked after.
But he also isn't coming from the perspective of the widow whose kids, like if he was the widow and this woman was coming and wanting to adopt his kids, he's not thinking of that perspective. No. He's really just thinking about where he's at.
Yeah.
And then it leads to Claire being like, bye.
Fuck you, get out. And he is like, fuck you, I'm leaving. And not only is he leaving, he's moving to Paris.
Yeah, I think Fletch calls her and is like, Tristan is leaving and is not coming.
He's like, my internship has been moved to Jameson. What the fuck are you doing, Mom? So yeah, Fletcher has this like what the fuck conversation, kind of gives his mom like a slap in the face to be like, you're ruining this not only for yourself, but for us. We love Tristan and want Tristan.
And that is something that I really do enjoy about this book and love, is the growth of the kids with Tristan, and how at this point they're actually like, Mom, why are you pushing him away? Like,
we want him too.
Like, this isn't now just you. Like, it's us. And like, it's her whole fears are like coming to be like reality because she's almost like manifested and made it happen.
Yeah.
Because of her fears.
So Claire races to the airport to try to get her man back. She does catch him in the terminal parking lot area. And they have a conversation about Tristan wanting to adopt the kids if they get married, because it's something that's important to him. And it's just something Claire is not ready to have happen. So he bids her farewell.
Boards that plane.
And goes to Paris. 2 weeks later, Tristan receives an email from Claire agreeing to sell her company to Miles Media. And he's like, I didn't know things were that bad. Because that was something Claire wouldn't talk to him about. She was trying to keep that
and I can understand, because I also feel like Claire is a very like strong person and doesn't want, because she was dating this guy who had the means to like save her.
And I mean, that's how they met, is him wanting to buy out her company.
But she didn't want to be perceived as weak. Like, she wanted Tristan to look at her as this like strong woman, as like this owner and
CEO and businesswoman
of this company. And like, but all she had to do is like tell him.
Harry and Patrick are supposed to have a weekend fishing getaway with their uncle. But it turns out they have duped everyone.
Bro, they played Claire and her brother
and
so
Fletcher.
Hard. And Fletcher so hard.
Because Tristan receives a phone call from the hotel front desk that he has visitors. And it's Patrick and Harry.
They're in freaking Paris, y'all.
They took Tristan's credit card and bought plane tickets, boarded a plane, flew themselves to Paris.
And said, we're going to get our substitute daddy back.
Yeah. So Tristan calls Claire, who's frantic about the boys running away and being missing, and he lets her know that they're with him. So this sparks Claire and Fletcher having to take a trip to Paris to retrieve Harry and Patrick.
I loved this interaction when Tristan is now informed that Harry and Patrick are in freaking France, and he like rushes down and he like goes and like rushes them and hugs them and is like, oh my god, like, I love you, like,
but that was so fucking stupid.
What are you doing? Like, you're so, like, you can't do that. But it's also like very loving, but also like, y'all can't do this. Like, this is bad shit. But they're kind of like,
we missed you,
and like, we want to stay with you, and like,
they're like, just because our mom gave you up doesn't mean we gave you up.
Right, because they're like, we've come to move with you.
Like, we picked you.
But that is also Claire's legit as to one of the big reasons why she didn't want Tristan to adopt them. Because if they went south, the possibility of, like, having to split the time.
Yep.
But they made it safe. Somehow, they were able to
get through customs as unaccompanied minors.
and find their way to the hotel that he's staying at? How did they even know where he was at?
I think they probably called his driver. Like, they knew enough about Tristan to, like, have all of this be with, like, Tristan's resources.
Probably, but still, they're, like, young. They're children.
This ordeal causes Claire and Tristan to reconnect and pick back up their relationship because they were just both, like, miserable without each other.
Just going through the motions.
And they kind of let it all happen. And then, you know, she's seeing how much her boys actually do love him and actually do want him to be a part of their lives. So she's kind of like, it's gonna be okay. So they rekindle the romance. And as a family, they enjoy a good little weekend in Paris.
Why wouldn't they? You're already there.
Might as well enjoy it. Like, Harry and Patrick
they can be grounded when they get back to the States.
Yeah. They're still in trouble, but also,
like, thanks for getting me, like, these adults to sort their shit out. And
they kind of pulled a parent trap.
They did.
Then we get a time jump. Everyone is back in New York, and Tristan is taking the boys out for a secret mission to pick out an engagement ring for Claire as he's going to propose to her over their Christmas holiday. When Tristan proposes, of course, Claire says yes and gives Tristan his own present, which is news that she is pregnant. 2 weeks later, Tristan is at his brother's office and gives his resignation as he's going to help out Anderson Media until the time comes when his boys are men and can take over the company for themselves. The end.
That was the Takeover by TL Swan. I like how it ended. I like how Tristan obviously has like bought out Anderson Media.
And he's going to help.
But he's like going to help
bring it back
Fletch.
to its former glories, so then it can go down to Fletcher and Patrick and Harry, and they can run it just like their dad wanted.
Oh, I liked that ending.
It was really good.
We are now going to do a little bit more in-depth smutty time talk.
Yes, because this book was heavy spice.
Because this book is also over 430 pages. And I felt, because you listened to it the first time, and I read it the first time, and I felt like it was a lot of smut. Without further ado, let's just jump into Alex and I decided that we're going to choose 2 of our favorite scenes from the sections that we covered. So the first sex scene that I chose as one of my top for this book is at the conference hotel room. So this is like the first time that they are getting it on. So remember, Tristan and Claire are at that conference in conference in France, and he's finally convinced her to give in to him. And this is kind of what happens. So Tristan commands Claire to take off all of her clothes. Then it's his turn. He finds out that she hasn't had sex since her husband died, which is 5 years ago. Claire's feeling body conscious, and Tristan runs his hands over and points out her cellulite, her stretch marks, her C-section scar, her little stomach pooch, and slightly saggy boobs, and tells her that she is beautiful, just the way she is. He lets her know he has his own insecurities, but his are just internal versus external. Then he starts to finger her and suck on her boobs and tell her to spread her legs. He continues to finger bang her and wants her to clench around his fingers so he can get a preview of what he's going to feel around his dick, since they only have that one condom. He points out her pussy is perfect, and Claire tells him to shut up and fuck her, then proceeds to tell him mid-session he has an ugly sex face, which I thought was really funny. Tristan tells Claire she needs to come because he's about to finish. Claire isn't ready yet, and Tristan finishes. He then tells her there's another way that they could have sex that won't result in her getting pregnant, and Claire responds with, "Forget it, you only get one go."
That was a good one. Other than, I got very cringy when he was, like, you know, grabbing at her, like, stomach pooch and, like, pointing out the C-section scar and, like, stretch marks and stuff. Like, I get that was powerful, but it also, I cringed as a reader during that.
Did you?
I didn't like it.
I didn't necessarily.
Like, especially when he grabbed the lower stomach. I was like, if someone did that to me, fucking slap someone or bow them in the face.
But, like, reading it, I didn't. How I kind of read it and interpreted it, though, was it being very quick. And just being like, I love, like,
I love the body positivity that he was giving
everything.
her. Everything else about that scene was great.
fine.
Just that part, I was like,
Nah. So, my next favorite sex scene in the first half of the book is in the hotel room in New York, the night that Tristan runs into Claire and Gabriel out having just very platonic day. So this is what happens. So Claire is laying on bed naked, waiting for Tristan when he enters the room and states, "Playing hard to get, I see." And Claire responds with, "I am hard to get, but tonight I'm easy to fuck."
loved that line.
And, like, this is just kind of the stuff that you see a lot of throughout this book.
The bance is beautiful.
Yes. Claire wants to be in control because the chemistry between the two of them feels too good and natural, and it scares her. Tristan, however, gets down on his knees in front of Claire and says how he has missed her pussy and begins to kiss it and go down on her. It's also time for Claire to receive her punishment for trying to end things with Tristan, and Tristan starts pounding hard into her, slaps her ass. He then informs her that they don't end until they end. They both finish, and Claire is starting to regret this hookup and wants to go home. So obviously at the beginning part of this book, it was a lot more give and take before they actually established their relationship.
Mhm.
Like, Claire definitely felt a lot of guilt and remorse after every time she, like, hooked up with Tristan, which is kind of understandable. It's the first person she's had sex with since her husband died. But those were just two scenes. So, like, as Alex has stated, this book has a lot of smut, but it's nothing crazy, where it's not, like, public. It's not, there's no knife or gunplay. There's no, like...
There's really no kinks in this.
No, it's just good old sexy time.
Good old-fashioned fucking.
Good old-fashioned fucking, y'all. So, Alex, tell me which two smutty scenes were your favorite in the second portion of the book.
So my first favorite is when Tristan has purchased the rocket for him and the kids to build, and they're, like, off doing that, and he comes back in, and he starts off telling Claire, "I need to be fucked tonight."
Coming in hot.
And she's like, "How am I gonna do that?" And he's like, "I don't know. Get creative." It's like, on the couch, in the laundry, in my car, on the street for all I care. You need to fuck me. And she starts to tease him. She's like, "Your car's too small." And he's like, I don't care. Fuck me now then, while we're in your room. And then she's like, "But the children."
The children.
But the children. He's like, "They're distracted and busy. Do something."
It's like, why do you think half the reason I bought this freaking rocket?
So then he, like, starts to take a different approach, and he's like, "So you love me?" And she's like, "I do." And he's, "Fuck me like you hate me." And she can't say no to this.
Who could say no to this?
So then they could do, like, they have a quick session in her room where he has her on, like, the edge of the bed. Like, he's sitting on the bed, and, like, he has her, like, bouncing up and down on. And they're trying to stay silent to not alert the children to what is happening
Upstairs.
Yeah. And as they're pounding it out, Tristan's like, fuck me harder. Because again, fuck me like you hate. And she whispers, "I hate you." And he's like, "Ooh, but that sounds a lot like I love you." He's like, "I hate you too."
I did like this scene.
And then he's like, "Hate me harder."
Yeah, this was good.
And then she winds up asking him, like, "Did you buy my children a spaceship so that we'd have time to sneak away and have sex?" And he's like, "Absolutely. 100%.
Like, I knew it was going to be beneficial for multiple reasons.
And then they finish, she's like, "Too bad you gotta go build that rocket now.
Yeah, go, sweetie.
This isn't
Go back and help the kids."
This isn't going to be one of those multiple hours long sessions that they normally get to have." She's like, "You gotta go bond with the kids." Okay. Thanks for the orgasm, though.
Appreciate it.
Love you, mean it, bye.
That was a good one.
I love their banter and just, like, the dirty talking. It's great.
It is.
The next one I like is when they're in Paris at the end, when the boys have run away and they've reconnected, and Claire's kind of broken down, and it's like that night when Claire and Fletcher have arrived, and Tristan and Claire are together, and it's just a very passionate sex scene.
Well, it's them, like, reconnecting, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's 2 weeks of them being broken up after 7 months of bliss. Like, relationship bliss.
That just exploded from one major miscommunication.
And just Claire holding and keeping everything inside and pressed deep, and it's just exploding.
Yeah. So they're, like, laying in bed, and he's, like, holding her, and he's like, kissing her forehead, which I love a forehead kiss. And he's
Who
like,
doesn't?
let me in. I don't want you to have to go through anything alone anymore. And she's crying, but she realizes she's missed him so much. So then she starts like sliding her hand down his boxers and like starts to, give him a little handy J and is like, I need you. And then he takes her face in his hand and starts to like slowly and seductively kiss her. And they, slowly start taking their clothes off. And then he starts to finger bang her because he does that a lot throughout this book. And he's like, I know how to relax you, baby. And starts
getting all up in there.
Doing all the good things. Because apparently Tristan Miles is the king of finger fucking, according to Claire. And he gives it to her good before they get into the intercourse. And that scene was really more about that piece. You don't really get a whole lot with the sex stuff other than just like, I need you, fuck me, I missed you.
But it's like, it's that nice, like, finally coming back together. They're going to be stronger than ever.
Yeah.
Who doesn't like that type of sex scene?
So we had a good hate fuck and then a good I love you fuck
like
from the second half.
I liked both of those. And I think that TL Swan does a really good job at writing a smutty scene. It's
the build
heavily
up
peppered
to
through
the sex scenes, because the sex scenes aren't super long. Like, where some of the other books, we get, like, multiple chapters of, like, the same
sex scene,
where TL Swan will kind of break it up, like, hours later or
right
whatnot. So then the actual graphic descriptions are only, like, maybe a couple pages.
But when
sometimes
you also,
only a paragraph, but I like the variation.
Right. But then, like something you said, when you add in all the, like,
the build up to that moment.
I mean, it is long. Like,
yeah.
when you look at the sex scenes from the time that they are starting to, like, have that sexual conversations of, like, the hate bants or, like, just the sexy bants all
or even
the way
just,
through.
like, the seduction.
But then when you include that with the actual smutty,
then it's a long scene.
It just feels like you're only reading smut.
Yeah.
But it is cool, like, going back and kind of seeing, oh, it really wasn't that much. It's just how she wrote into those scenes. Mm-hmm. Increases that pleasure, increases that intensity. But if you are interested and you haven't read this book, we definitely left a lot out for the readers. So
you're still going to get some good surprises.
Exactly. So, Alex, do we want to move into our love and hates?
Let's get into it.
Sweet.
So I have feelings on this book.
I did too. And I'm glad we had feelings because that's what we're here for.
That's the whole thing of emotions and potions. We need to have the emotions.
Yeah.
So something I loved with this book, the biggest thing I loved with this book, was Tristan's relationship progression with the kids.
Oh my gosh, that's what I have too. Yes. And that's one of the things that when we were just doing our plot breakdown, something that stood out to me, even just like listening to the plot breakdown and remembering that, like,
so good.
So good. Because it goes from.
And so realistic too.
Because it's like, this is definitely like an enemies to lovers type of book, but it's also like an enemies type of to love.
Friends.
Like, but like for the kids, like they all start pretty much as enemies besides Patrick. But yeah, I love how at the beginning they're like, they can't stand Tristan, like, and then they're like, no, we choose him. And so I will say one of my like main loves and hates kind of going on that was I really liked specifically, I loved Patrick. I thought he was the cutest little kid ever. And I love how him and Tristan's relationship was always on a good.
To kind of piggyback off of that, another thing I loved was like the realistic timeline and nature of events.
Oh my gosh. I had that written down too. Yeah, I just liked that it was very realistic, even from the get. It was like a few days, a few weeks in between them like running into each other, and then you do get that like time jump of them being in a relationship, and then you also get a 2-week time jump from the time when that falls apart. Like, you know me, I like a timeline that makes sense and is somewhat realistic. I thought that this was spot on.
Yeah, and I also thought like how the things they had to deal with along the way of their relationship was realistic. Like, you're going to have issues with the kids accepting his family kind of being hesitant about things.
This relationship. Yeah. One other thing that I really liked, it's kind of a love-hate. I enjoy a book that inflicts feelings. Mm-hmm. So, like, with this book, there were parts where I was, like, visibly laughing out loud. Like, specifically when Harry, like, the hair loss with
So
Harry
funny.
putting the stuff in the conditioner. Like, I thought, like, I was visibly, like, laughing out loud. And then, even though at the end of the book, when Claire was falling apart and ruining the relationship, even though I was fucking pissed at her and being like, girl, this was so avoidable, it still pulled at my heartstrings because, like, I haven't ever been married and I haven't lost a husband to death. But, like, I just felt for her.
Yeah.
I felt like
The empathy and how you these characters is real.
Yeah, and I just was like, oh my God, like, this poor girl going through this. Like, I couldn't even imagine. And so, like, at that point, even though it annoyed me, even though it was avoidable, and it pissed me off because I'm like, this doesn't even have to be happening, I was, like, tearing up because I was like, I feel so bad for Claire trying to navigate all these feelings.
There's a lot of emotional whiplash in this.
Yeah, more so than I was expecting. But
because even with Tristan, there was moments where I absolutely loved Tristan, and then absolutely
right.
And it was something that I talked about you with off the pod about how, like, as we were kind of checking in with each other as we were reading it, where I'm just like, I'm 50-50 with both of these main characters, and I don't know how to feel about that.
Right, because you're like, they do one thing that I really love, but then they turn around and do something where I'm like, I hate that. Why? Yes, this book had a lot of emotions, but if you can pull out a reader, like, if you can get me in my feels.
I mean, I went through the gambit of things, so, like, I mean, props to TL Swan on that.
Yeah, fantastic, I will say.
Another thing I loved was the Miles brothers' relationships with each other, and then, like, Marley and Emily as side characters.
I really liked Marley. Emily seemed very sweet, too. It kind of makes me be
it
like...
makes me want to read her and Jameson's book.
Yeah, because I do know that her and Jameson, I think she starts working for him, and he's this, like, tyrant boss.
And you get glimpses of that within this
and then
one.
they fall in love, and I'm all for, like, an office romance. Like, who doesn't love a office romance love, right? But yeah, I do like their dynamic.
And then the brothers, I liked how they all had that, like, close bond, brotherly connection.
But they
were all different.
Yes, they had different kind of quirks. They had different qualities and things that they were good at. That if we decided to read this full series, I don't think we would get bored with the characters.
Yeah, because each brother is different enough that I kind of want to know more about them.
Right. And my last love, and this is more of a personal thing and not necessarily anything to do with the book, but I am obsessed with my casting choices for this book. Like, I feel like I hit it on the... And I, like, love my casting for... We did Claire, Tristan, and Marley. Those were our 3 castings. And I just feel like I chose people who I could actually be like, these are the visual representations of these characters. And, like, this is the first time that I've felt so strongly.
I'm excited to hear this later.
About my cast.
I'm so excited to hear this later. So my last love is kind of like 2 of my favorite scenes within the whole book. I loved the art auction and then the nightclub scene with the Miles boys and the London boys. Kind of like merging these 2 series. I liked those moments a lot.
And I'm a fan of those in series when you have overlapping, like if you're an author and you're writing 2 different series, but they do overlap. I like getting glimpses of those overlaps. And I think that TL Swan did a good job where it wasn't too much, but it was just a taste because I remember that I had gone to this point before you.
Yep.
So I had already passed this point. But then you had texted me being like, is it just me or does, like, the Garcia character sound, like, really hot and, like, I'm interested in that? And I was like, girl, as soon as I read that scene, I was like, I kind of want to read Mr. Garcia now because I was like, he sounds hot. Like,
yeah, I want to read his book.
But yeah, those are some really good loves.
Before we go into hate, I do have one thing I wish was. So I wanted more with the Gabriel dynamic. I thought that could have been a really good tension point between Claire and Tristan's relationship. And it felt like it was building to that, and then it wasn't that big of a deal.
So, for one of my hates, I wish there were more plots involving other side characters. So for the example I wrote down was Marley was seen a lot, but we really don't know anything about her. And that kind of falls with Gabriel too. Because I remember sitting in your office talking about what we think this plot is going to be. Like, what is going to be the catalyst? What is going to be the big, like, issues for these characters?
Because we really went into this book blind because we wanted to for Meredith.
Right.
Hey, how you doing?
And so we really didn't know. And, like, one of the things that we talked about was, like, thinking that Gabriel was, like, going to somehow screw maybe Claire over, and, like, Tristan would have to come in and, like, get her out of it, or, like, I don't know. I just was kind of let down that we had and were shown so many of these characters.
There were different potential things and issues that could have happened that furthered along the plot.
Like, I think that so for me, I thought that the plot was a little weak in this book.
Yeah.
For being 430 pages.
As far as, like, external plot stuff, like driving factors of the relationship. Really, the plot was the relationship.
And I'm just used to reading things that have a little bit more plot, or, like, I guess it's just because I'm such a dark romance reader at this point, where a lot of the books that I read have very intense plot points, and that are the catalysts on the relationship, whereas this book
is more relationship.
And I was looking at it through a different lens versus what actually I should have been. But once I kind of got over that and accepted it for what it is, I'm okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
I have closure. Like, I'm not mad that I didn't get some kind of, like, backstab.
That's definitely one of my hates, too, how there just wasn't enough external plot for how long the book, and for most of the plot to be the focus of the relationship between Tristan and Claire. The story could have been shorter. Could have cut out, like, 100.
And going on to that, I feel like when we finally did start to get into some, like, plot at the end where the couple kind of, like, blow up, which is that big catalyst, which happens in every romance novel, just in different ways. I just thought that was very quick and just, like, kind of came out of nowhere, where I thought that maybe the buildup could have been a little bit smoother.
Yeah.
Because it was, like, the first half of the book was very little plot. Like, it was very much just their relationship, her kids briefly mentioning that, like, she's struggling with her company, but then all of a sudden at the end, it's like, oh, we're going under. But it's like,
that came out of nowhere.
We haven't really seen Claire, like, do anything.
Yeah.
With the company. But also, maybe this book, that's not
the point.
What the author wanted.
Yeah.
Which is fine, too, because I thought that this book was decent. Like, it is a decent book.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw some missed opportunities where, for the length of the book, I was expecting a
little bit more development. Some things outside of the romance part.
Yeah, and then also, I think this is going to be one that's on both of our lists. It's a little repetitive.
Yeah, especially the hot and cold, and how many times they break up. It becomes a little irritating.
And then something else we both saw is that, so you would have a scene with Tristan and Claire where, like, say they were going through, like, one of their breakups. So they were arguing, you kind of see this whole thing, and then the next chapter is, like, Claire with Marley, and we pretty much get that whole thing stated over again.
Yeah, a lot of dialogue gets repeated.
So it's just, like, and that's where, like, 100 pages could have been cut out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as a reader, we don't need those types of details to be played from one chapter to the next.
Yeah, and because we had a conversation about it, because I mostly listened. So to me, like, the repeating dialogue was very evident listening to it. So I was wondering if you picked up on it reading it. And
I think that it's less annoying reading it than maybe the audio, but I definitely picked up being like, okay, we've kind of established this. It doesn't need to be reset in just a different context.
And speaking of the audio, I did not like the male name. I had you listen to a sample of it because I know you don't really like audiobooks, but I was like, does this voice sound like Tristan? No, it sounds more like a blue collar, hardworking,
does not sound like
cowboy,
a billionaire seed. And that's kind of trippy.
Yeah.
Like, if I was listening to it, I would need a voice that I could picture.
I didn't mind Claire's voice. Claire, the voice actor for Claire, she was fine. It was just, and not to say that the voice actor for Tristan was bad. He wasn't bad. I just didn't like his voice. Yeah.
Like, I think when we talked about it, because you played me a clip, and we were both like, this would be a great, like, birthday girl.
Pike Lawson. Like, construction worker. Like, blue collar. Military romance. Even, like, maybe even, like, an athlete or something. But, like, this.
Not the savvy.
Like, this swab speaks multiple languages. Like, upper crust New Yorker person, no.
Right. I feel that. And that's like a petty thing.
Very
petty. And that's just like a personal thing. But I can also relate.
And that has probably nothing to do with TL Swan. That's probably more like publishers and whatever.
So, one thing that I did hate about, like, the plot towards the end, I really didn't enjoy the Claire not telling Tristan about her failing company plotline and how he receives, like, this letter being like, I've come to the decision that I'm going to accept your offer and, like, taking over my company or whatever. I'm like, Claire, I understand that you wanted to be seen as this bad bitch and as this strong bitch, but also you're struggling and you have someone in your corner.
Bad bitches can ask for help.
Right, bad bitches can ask for help, especially when they have someone in their corner who could actually fucking help.
Yeah.
And do it in a way that is going to benefit you.
Yeah, and give you advice without actually, like...
taking over.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, I was just kind of annoyed that that was like the huge catalyst. One of them. Because, I mean, him overstepping his bounds with the kids, definitely I could see being a catalyst. But, like, this was all on Claire. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, girl, grow a pair and ask for help.
And then kind of like my last hate is how much Claire was still pining after her husband. Because, like, 5 years of him being dead is a significant amount of time to start getting to the point where, like, you could actually start consider moving on. And I understand her having doubts and, like, slipping up throughout that. But just how much pining.
Well, it's obvious that she didn't do the care and, like, the self-care that's needed to get over the trauma of losing your husband young in a very dramatic, unexpected way. Yeah. Like, it's obvious that she just, like, was almost living in denial about it. Mm-hmm. But, like, accepting it at the same
time? It was just too much. Like, I could understand it. If we didn't have as many pining for Wade moments.
Because that also kind of, like, had me struggling a little. Because, like, what you said, where you're, like, at some points you really like Tristan, at other points you really don't like Tristan, but then the fact that Claire was still obviously very in love and, like, having love for her ex-deceased husband, also kind of, as a reader, like, conflicted me a little bit. Because I'm like, but I'm supposed to be rooting for these two people, but she's obviously, like, her and Wade had this fantastic relationship, nothing was wrong, they were soulmates, but now it's like you have to also adjust to the fact that this story isn't about them.
Yeah. And it felt very much like Claire and Wade's story for a lot of it. And I mean, I've never been married, never had to go through this, so maybe it'll resonate with someone who has been in this situation more than
someone who hasn't.
Who hasn't.
So those were our loves and hates from The Takeover by TL Swan.
Mm-hmm. So time to get into some extra fun things with the pod.
Casting call. At some point, I would love to have a segment of audio where we play for casting calls where it's like a little song that's like casting calls, something, you know what I mean? That would mean we made it. Yes. But yes, let's move into our casting calls for this book. I'm super excited. I've already kind of...
That's one of your loves.
Given away that I'm really excited. So if you don't like my castings, don't tell me. Because I will physically fight you. Just kidding.
But also not.
But also, my casting is awesome. Do you want me to start?
Please do.
Okay. So, for my Claire, I chose the wonderful Mandy Moore. She fits the age demographic. She fits the aesthetic of kind of what TL Swan describes. And also, just from her in This Is Us, I just feel like she would be a really good Claire. And, like, Mandy Moore, like, she's classy. Like, she's an adult, but she's also freaking hot. Like, she just fits.
She can still get it.
Yeah, I just really like her as Claire. So who is your Claire, Alex?
So my Claire is Rachel McAdams.
I mean, you could cast Rachel McAdams as anyone and I would be okay with it. Mm-hmm. She also kind of gives me that Mandy Moore vibe.
And she's also just a really great actress, so I feel like she could do that whole range with, like, the emotional bits and, like, you know.
And she's been brunette. Like, that's not, you know, normally she's blonde, but, like, she pulls off the brunette and, like, she could fit that character description. And Rachel McAdams is just a fantastic choice for anything.
Can't go wrong with her.
No. So for my Tristan, I chose Matthew Daddario, which is actually Alexandra Daddario's brother, who I think we both have casted for something.
Yeah.
And He is
I feel like I may have casted him in something, or
you might have,
or had him as an option. He's been in my radar of stuff.
But he fits my Tristan, like the aesthetic. And I also managed, I think Mandy Moore is also like 38 and Matthew Daddario is in his early 30s. So like, I just also thought that the aging of them was like perfect. The aesthetic was perfect. I could see him playing like a CEO billionaire. He was in, the most recent thing that he was in that I know of was the Immortal Instruments Shadowhunters show on ABC Family or Freeform, whatever it is now. And
good choice.
So who is your Tristan?
So my Tristan is Richard Madden.
Same
Game
kind of vibe. I mean, him
Cinderella.
and Matthew Daddario have very similar aesthetics. Mm-hmm. So we were on the same page. And Richard Madden,
and I mean,
he plays a king. He plays a like prince. Like,
yeah, and I mean, clearly, Game of Thrones, he's not afraid of a sex scene. So
no, and he's played scenes where he's like has power,
and he's very posh, being British. Mm-hmm.
All right, and then for our Marley, our last casting of the book, I went with Emily Osment. I just like her energy really spoke to me as Marley.
That's a good one.
Like, and I could also see Marley because we didn't get a whole lot of descriptors from her.
No, she's redhead.
Oh, is she a redhead?
But again, wigs, dye hair, like. But
I didn't even.
That's not a huge factor for me. But like, we really didn't get what her age was.
Like, how I was picturing her was just someone who's bubbly as, like, a executive assistant. Mm-hmm. Someone who is very much, like, organized, but also has to be, like, that front person of public and stuff. And then also, like, Emily Osment, I was also thinking of Marley being a little bit younger. And, like, in her early 30s. And, like, it falls into that demographic. But I was also just picturing her on Hungry. What was that?
Young and Hungry?
Young and Hungry. And, like, her character on that I could see as, like, a Marley.
Yeah.
And even Emily, or Lily from Hannah Montana. Like, just that energy. That's what I was picturing as Marley.
So I definitely took Marley as being our comedic character. But I also took her as, like, kind of no-nonsense. Maybe being, like, within Claire's age range, maybe a couple years younger. So I picked Angelina Johnson.
Oh, she is funny. Does she do stand-up?
Mm-hmm. She's a stand-up comedian.
I've seen her stand-up. She's funny.
She's been, like, in a couple of movies. Like, I think she was in some sort of romantic comedy wedding.
I like that.
But I just feel like she would be that one that would give Claire those pep talks about, like, no, you need to go ride a dick and, get back out there. And those, like, kind of bestie conversations that they had. I just feel like...
And I feel like her aesthetic also does emulate Marley as well.
Yeah.
Like, I could see her playing that character. See, I think we both have really good casting this week. I liked all of that. And I feel like we picked different people, but we are on the kind of same wavelength.
We usually are, which is...
Yeah. So obviously, if you want to see those castings and, like, the actual pictures and stuff...
Instagram.
Emotions and Potions Pod. Go ahead and follow us, like us.
All the things.
All the things. Okay.
All right, so now that we've casted, time to soundtrack this.
Time to soundtrack this bitch. So I think we just have to start with the overall theme.
Yeah. Overall song.
And I know that we both have the same song. We talked about this one.
We did talk about
this one song. Because it was so blatantly obvious.
Yeah.
And that is Hot and Cold by Katy Perry.
So I did come with a backup one because I knew that was your choice. So my second song for that is Should I Stay or Should I Go from The Clash.
And I actually had two for this theme. My second choice was One Week, Bare Naked Ladies, because it's just all about the, like, ups and downs.
1 week since you looked at me.
I don't know. So my next song choice is... This is what I literally wrote down. This is so embarrassing, like, looking back at these things. So my next thing is Claire Being Sad, which is... So it says, Claire Being Sad, which is often, for both Tristan and Wade. And that song is Wish You Were Here by Avril Lavigne.
To piggyback off of that, my next category is Claire unable to let go of her dead husband.
What song did you choose?
Dancing with Your Ghost by Sasha Alex Sloan.
It's a good one. Oh, that is so funny, though. That we literally, yep.
These other categories we did not discuss.
We don't discuss
The only
these.
one we discussed pre-pod was the
Fine,
overall
cool.
book vibes.
So my next category is, I just have it, sexy time.
Love.
And that one is Radar by Britney Spears.
Yes.
That song, okay, I used to listen to that song on my, bus ride for, middle school. I listened to that for this pod, and I was like, holy shit, this song is so sexual.
It is.
And I was listening to it as, a 13-year-old.
Even that music video kind of fits the vibes of this book.
I know, right? But isn't it a great fit for this book?
Mm-hmm.
But I was just like, wow, this song is very sexy.
So I have a song for the Miles brothers. All of them.
See, I don't have this. Okay.
Jordan Belfort by Wes Walker and Daryl.
Jordan Belfort. Jordan.
I've been getting dirty.
Many sides while flipping these birds.
Is that not just the Mile Media Boys anthem?
No, I saw that on our playlist because you went in first before me, so then I went in and saw what you had already posted, and I was like, Alex literally does kill this. That song? Yes. So I have, my next category is Tristan's theme song.
I gave him a theme song too.
And that one is First Class by Jack Harlow.
Alright, that's a good one.
Just because rich, billionaire. And that song is kind of a vibe too.
My Tristan song is What a Man by Salt and Peppa and In Vogue.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good choice. And then my final category that I have written down is, I have it for the ending and family. So the ending where they're a full family. And it's Our Own House by the Mr. Wives. Building your own house. Because they're a modern family there, whatever.
My last category is kind of the progression of Tristan and Claire's relationship. So Act 1 of their relationship, No Promises by Cheat Codes and Demi Lovato. And then Act 2, kind of the family where they're actually solidified and together, is You Were Meant for Me by Donny Hathaway.
I like those song choices. I like that. But yes, this playlist will be on Spotify. The links will be in our descriptions.
Also on our link tree, which is on Instagram. Hopefully we can bump up our TikTok followers so it can go on there too.
Everything is Emotions and Potions Pod.
Basically.
Very easy. But this playlist, we
all
killed
the
it
others.
Again. And all the others are up there. So if you are like us and like to have music for the books that you're reading, we got you covered.
Exactly.
So moving on to one of our final segments.
Ratings and the letter reveal.
Here we go. Okay. So my overall out of 10 for the Takeover by TL Swan. I gave it a 7.5. What about you, Alex?
I gave it a 6.
A 6. Okay. Care to elab?
It's a good book.
I agree.
It was just too long for what it was and just some of the little issues I had. It's not a bad book. Also, I just don't think I was the target audience for it. So I didn't connect to it as much as I think other people would.
Right.
That's nothing against the book or the author. It's a personal thing.
Right. Yeah, and a 7.5, I mean, I am pretty lenient when it comes to ratings because I couldn't. What these authors do. So I also try to take in that account. And like you said, it's not a bad book. Did I think it was a little long? Yes. Did I think it was a little repetitive? Yes. Do I wish that there was a little bit more plot until the last, third of the book? Yes. Yeah. But overall,
I want to read more by
yes.
this author, and I think I may like some of the other brothers' stories more. I may connect with some of those other stories more than I did with Tristan and Claire's.
Right. So what was your overall spice?
The spice, I gave it a 3.8.
3.8? I did a 3.9. So I also wrote, I was like, it's not super spicy as in taboo things.
Yeah, I didn't want to give it a 4 because there's no kinks.
No.
This is very kind of vanilla sex.
Yeah.
They have a lot of it.
Right. Which is why I gave it a high 3.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of it.
Yeah, I felt like it deserved more than just a 3 and kind of more than just a 3.5.
Yes.
Just because also the banner and the dirty talk was just good.
Yes.
And really this is very heavily focused on their sexual relationship.
So, Alex, I did actually write down, I had a question for you that I was curious for your opinion with this book.
Ooh.
So my question was, Alex. I actually wrote Alex.
Hello.
Who else am I going to ask this question to? How did you feel about Claire ending up? Because I know that you sometimes enjoy a romance book that is a little bit more realistic because she is like 38.
She can still get pregnant.
She can still get pregnant. You're still able to give birth. But like throughout this whole book, it was not a huge plot point, but it was brought up a few times that Tristan would be sacrificing his own family. Potentially to, have a family that just isn't his by blood.
Mm-hmm.
But then at the very, very end, Claire surprises him being like, we're creating our own family on top of the family that we already have established. Did you have any feelings or was it okay for you in this?
I'm 50-50 on it. I was happy for Tristan because he kind of gets everything. But also, Yeah.
No, I kind of felt the same way where I was really expecting this book to end where it was just going to be the 3 kids and the 2 parents, Tristan and Claire. Like, I really went into it being like, no, Claire isn't, they're not going to have that happily ever after.
Yeah, if the pregnancy was going to happen, I'm glad it did when it did, when he was already happy with the life that they've created and he was fine with just having the 3 boys
and adopting
being
them.
his.
Right.
So I'm glad if the pregnancy did happen, it was at that point versus
somewhere else along the way. I personally didn't mind it. When it came up, I was like, oh, they're like really going to get that like happily ever after. But like sometimes in romance novels, I know that you've said that you sometimes don't like that everyone gets pregnant.
I don't need everyone gets married and everyone gets pregnant.
Right.
I don't always need that.
Well, there were our overall rankings, our spice ratings, our casting, and our song choices. So the last thing we have is that letter. Alex?
It's a hate for me.
So it's a light hate for me as well.
It's not a bad book.
No.
I want to read Mr. Garcia.
Me too.
I kind of want to finish the series.
I definitely am interested in Jameson since we met Jameson and Emily. Like, Jameson was the most present brother in this book. And we didn't get to meet Emily. I would be interested because Jameson also...
I want to use the series as a palate cleanser for me.
Yes. Like, Jameson also, like, that... Because he's the CEO.
Yeah.
I like that kind of... And he's going to be a dick. Love it.
Same.
I love dicks in romance novels.
I want to know that one.
I like dicks in romance novels. Sorry. But yeah, I would be very interested in reading more from TL Swan. Something that I mentioned to you. Maybe it's just we're a little younger. Maybe in a few years, this book will fall into more of the stuff that we're interested in. Because you're right, a lot of the plots, a lot of the themes, we're like single. We're not married. We don't have kids. We really couldn't relate. But that could all change. And it's like this, like TL Swan is definitely on my radar. She has a hell of a lot of books.
Yeah.
She has a great collection.
So it definitely makes me want to read more by her.
Yes.
But I don't think I would reread this one.
I don't think I would either. I would recommend it, though.
I would definitely recommend it.
I would recommend it to people who would find this genre of romance.
I would recommend this book to my mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that shouldn't be weird if you've listened to our book journey episode because my mother gave me my first explicit romance book.
Way to go, Wendy! We're here for it. No shame. All right, Alex. But I think that wraps up this episode of Emotions and Potions, a love/hate letter to the Takeover.
But I'm also going to give Meredith a love letter, though.
Yes. Love letters to Meredith all day. Because...
Thank you for sending us on this journey.
Yes, and if any other listeners, if you guys want to hear anything...
Send us your book recommendations.
We'll do it.
Clearly, we will do it. We will listen,
will do it.
And it'll happen. It may take a little while, but it'll happen.
We got you. But thank you for listening to another episode. I'm Ashtin.
And I'm Alex.
And we will see you next time here at Emotions and Potions.
Like, subscribe, rate, review, all the things. I don't know. Words.
Bye!